there has to be a shift. I think that's scary for people. There has to be a shift of identity. Like, what would the person that you want to be doing as opposed to the person that you are? Make decisions from a place of at, and not from a place of from.
Welcome to this
We just want to pop you off.
episode of the Maza's Musings podcast. We are in the midst of January, which is the very heart of New Year's resolution season. And as we've all set these resolutions before, we found them incredibly difficult to hold on to adhere to stick with, especially when it comes to those fitness and health resolutions. Well, today I'm talking with Lavoilette of Evolve Health, who's going to help us with some of the tips that he has and some of the strategies he's come up with to help keep you on the right course as you maneuver through the difficulties that are these resolutions. It's not that setting a resolution is necessarily a bad thing. It's more just making sure that you are setting goals and have strategies that can help you make sure that they're attainable, achievable, and you're getting everything that you want out of it. One of the resolutions that probably all of us should have is to laugh a little bit more. So part of your strategy for that, to help keep that sustainable, is to keep listening to this podcast and Meghan's Cuckoo Bananas Joke of the Week.
And now it's time for Meghan's
Cuckoo bananas, joke.
Hi, Meghan.
Hi.
Do you have a joke for us today?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
What does lightning wear under its clothes?
I don't know. What does lightning wear under its clothes?
Thunderwear.
Ah, that was a good one.
Ooh, Crash.
Alrighty, say goodnight.
Good night. Cut.
All right, so last week I had mentioned that there was a little bit of news about Disney tech that I wanted to get into, but there was so much going on with Star Wars that I just had to put it off. So we're going to talk about that this week.
Donald, wake up! It's showtime! Don't forget the orchestra!
Ah, there you are. And just in time.
Mom says there's even more magical stuff now.
For those of you standing, please hold on to the handrails throughout our journey and stay clear of the doors.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
And here we go!
Well, I'm going to kick off this minute by just pointing out once again that it would not be a post on InsideTheMagic.com if it did not have a somewhat misleading headline. So this was something that was sent to me by my buddy Dan, who's been on the podcast many times talking about Disney, and he's pretty well-versed when it comes to media, being in the career field that he's in. The headline for this said, "Confirmed, Disney building its own Facebook and TikTok app." Misleading. So all of this information is actually coming from, and you'll find that out if you scroll way down in the post. It's coming from a report from Deadline. So let's go to Deadline and actually find out what this is all about. So Disney Plus is going to be adding vertical videos as a way to try and boost its daily engagement. See how different that sounds than what the original headline made you believe? So just a little bit here from Deadline. Disney Plus, which is a leading subscription streamer, but is looking to catch up with some streaming and digital rivals in terms of daily engagement, is adding vertical videos to this service. The arrival of the new format later this year is one of several advertising-oriented announcements the company made Wednesday. And when was this? So this was published on January 7th. So whatever date the Wednesday was. At its tech and data showcase at CES Las Vegas. Other new offerings include a new brand impact metric and a new video generation tool that helps advertisers create high-quality, connected, TV-ready commercials using existing assets and guidelines. Okay, so essentially what this is the vast majority of the day-to-day use, your phone, is vertical videos that you're getting off of TikTok, off of Reels, off of YouTube Shorts. And so it's basically Disney latching onto that to not only get the people and capture the audience that is sitting down in front of the TV at night, or whenever they're sitting down in front of the TV, to consume movies or shows. It's also looking to get in front of people on a much more consistent basis. YouTube was actually a little late to this themselves with the shorts, but now they've figured out a way where they are integrating the longer, horizontal screen. The more, I'm not a technical aficionado, but essentially the more classic style, along with the shorts. And so if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll see that we have the full episodes in that classic, more horizontal format, but we also do put together reels that are kind of little tastes, little promos to let people know what's happening on with the podcast. So basically Disney's, had their toe in the water with this a little bit. Like, they do some stuff with ESPN and the ESPN app with regards to this, but this is much more. They're trying to integrate more Disney into your everyday usage and getting into like the thing that you're using every day, which is your phone. So, I guess it's no surprise. I'll be interested to see what kind of content generation this is. I'm a little worried that this may end up merging with what they've said about being open to extended use of AI and allowing users to use AI to create content using certain Disney properties. Again, I'm not an expert on any of this, but on top of everything else, I think that this is a good lesson that don't just make your reaction off of the headline on one of these sites that maybe isn't quite telling you even close to what the actual story is. I'm sure that there are some technical aspects of this that are going to be incorporated to make Disney Plus operate in that function or in that fashion. But I don't think saying that they're developing their own TikTok app is at all accurate or, fair to be putting out there to people. But anyway, just know that you are going to soon have the ability to get even more Disney content, get even more Disney in your life, simply by opening up the Disney Plus app on your phone. And another way that you can get more Disney in your life is to book your next trip to Disney World or Disneyland, or like we're doing, we're visiting Disney Paris fairly soon, Disneyland Paris. And you can do that with We Do Travel Right. We Do Travel Right offers that one-on-one service of an agent, and that agent has a team behind them who is helping get you all of those things, whether it's your park tickets, whether it's your dining reservations, whether it's your hotel stays. They help you with all of that. And that goes for whether it's Disney, whether it's Universal, you're going on a cruise, or you're going to an all-inclusive. It's all free as well. That's because all of those places build the use of an agent into their pricing already. So you're paying for the agent, whether you're using one or not. So doesn't it just make sense to use the agent? So if you're ready to get your next magical vacation started today, check out WeDoTravelRight.com/Maza. That's WeDoTravelRight.com/MAZA.
Well, I can't do any more damage around this popsicle stand.
So long.
See you real soon.
All right, we're going to get right into that main topic. So make that resolution to sit back and enjoy for the next 45 minutes or so. All right, well, I am here today with Mike Lavoilette, and I'm sorry, I probably butchered the last name there. I'm terrible with pronunciations, but and we're going to be talking a little bit about, basically, we're getting into the new year. We're full swing into the new year, and a lot of people have set goals, set resolutions for themselves. And we're just going to talk about how we can do this in such a way that is sustainable, fulfilling, attainable. And Mike's got some great tips on how busy professionals like myself and a lot of other people can find the time and find the successful way to achieve their goals without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling that they're letting themselves down if things don't go the right way. And so I really appreciate you, Mike, taking the time to talk with me today, because, of course, the big premise here is we're busy people. How do we do this? But before we get into that, I just wanted to give everybody a chance to learn a little bit about you and who you are. And so this is your opportunity to introduce yourself to everybody. So fire away.
Yeah. So, Chris, I've known Chris for a long time. Minichog. How far do you want me to start? I was born in Springfield. Yeah. So came from a small town in Western Massachusetts, Hamden. You might know it if you're watching the podcast. I was a musician. That was my first career. Was as a piano teacher, a music educator. Played out in bars and clubs, did cocktail piano, stuff like that. But fell in love with human anatomy and physiology. Decided to go back to school for physical therapy. Got my doctorate in physical therapy. Went on to get an orthopedic specialist post-grad. Started working in the clinic. It was great. I loved it. COVID hit, and I got furloughed and decided that I actually had a lot more knowledge and education that I could give people in the clinic. So I started Evolve Health, which is an online coaching, fitness and rehab coaching business. And that's what I do now. I help busy professionals, parents become their fittest, most confident selves. I think confidence is a big thing here.
Now, getting right into it, I mean, I kind of mentioned it off the top, but we're looking at people who are I would say that myself, I'm somewhat included in this, but a lot of people are setting those New Year's resolutions, especially those fitness resolutions. And how would you suggest that busy professionals and parents, both of us are parents, how do we set goals that are realistic and sustainable? Because I think so many times people get into this thing where it's just like they've set a number there, and maybe they don't even know how they're going to get to that number, but they just know, well, this is the goal. This is what I want to do. That's the resolution.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people don't even have that, right? So I think the first thing is having a really clearly defined goal. Even if it's big, even if it's a big number. And I think, I kind of want to start off. A lot of people have weight loss goals, right? As New Year's resolution fitness goals, but it's not always about that. So I don't want to put everything in the context of weight loss, but you could have a number, or to make sure it's really clearly defined. So make sure your goal is clearly defined, right? If it's weight, then it's weight. If it's something else, then it's something else. And those two might contradict, right? Weight loss and getting stronger for a strongman competition, different, so you're doing different things there. But you want to have that long-term goal. You want to be really clear on it. And you want to have some short-term goals, some milestones to help you get there, because you want to have some wins along the way. I mean, if you're looking at, hey, I want to lose 100 pounds, which is totally possible. A lot of people have done, a lot of people sustained it, but it's big. And if you don't have these small goals, short-term goals, milestones along the way, you're going to feel pretty frustrated. So I think, that's the first thing. Clearly defined goals and milestones to get there, and make sure that you celebrate them. And that's actually a big thing I have people do. Is part of my business is there's a community aspect, and I have a wins channel. We use Slack. So I have a wins channel, and I encourage people to post their wins. And it's kind of like Facebook or Instagram, where people will put emojis on there. And when you post something on Facebook and people like it, or they think it's funny, or they encourage you, but you get that quick dopamine hit. But you've got to celebrate those quick wins. Hey, if your goal is 100 pounds and you've lost 3, I mean, celebrate that, right? You can't just be like, I have 97 pounds to go. Like you're not looking at that. So it's important to have those. I think it's one thing.
Now, do you think that is one of the biggest, most common mistakes that people make, is just not having those little milestones in between to help them get through?
I think it is one of the most common mistakes, for sure. I mean, there are a lot of there's a lot of mistakes that people make that if they tighten things up, they'd be a lot more successful. But for sure, not having those milestones set is a mistake. And I think going too hard, too fast is a really common one for people. You can either get burnt out, or you go too hard, too fast, and you get injured. Like any injury is just too much too soon. You think of like a tendonitis, like your tendon you aren't giving it enough time to heal between exposures, or between workouts, right? Or between whatever your job is, right? Because a lot of people get this at work. A fracture, a bone fracture, like an acute bone fracture, like if someone breaks a bone, that also is too much too soon. Because if you think about a Muay Thai fighter, they've conditioned their shin to kicking trees, and so it's pretty strong. For them, it's not too much too soon. For me, getting hit with a baseball bat in the shin, not I think we're getting off here, but I'm just thinking it's too much too soon. That's a big thing, right? I think a big mistake is people don't lift weights because they think it'll make them bulky, or because they associate it with bro culture. And I think it's a big mistake. And, I know it's a big mistake because I'm a research nerd. And, if you want to be able, I'm 43, so I'm a long ways off from this. And probably a lot of the people that are listening to this are, but you think about your parents or grandparents that you've seen, maybe some of them haven't been able to get up off of the chair or off of the toilet. If you can't do that, right, you're not going to live a very high quality life. And So you need to be strong to be able to do that. So that's honestly, that's a huge mistake that I see people make, and I get it. People don't want to be bulky. People don't like throw culture. Um, so I totally get that. Uh, Other mistakes, people focusing on just doing cardio. If weight loss is a goal, they'll just come in and do a lot of cardio. It can be a tool for weight loss for sure. But you think if you're doing 30 minutes of cardio, uh, you're probably burning 250, 300, 350 calories, depending on what intensity you went. And that can be, a cook. For some reason, I did this years ago, and it was like a cookie from Subway. I don't think I know anybody who's eaten a cookie from Subway in a long time. If you have, that's probably a session of cardio, but it's not that much. Like 300 calories is not that much. So you really have to pay attention to nutrition. And I think that's a big mistake people make. So I'm going into all these mistakes, but go on.
Would you say that generally, not necessarily having enough understanding or education on what's going to get you to, what combination of things is going to help get you to whatever that goal is, whether it's a weight loss goal, whether it's I want to, be able to lift X amount of weight, or whatever it may be, that people, the wrong approach is something that, impacts people and will make them more frustrated or feel like they're not making it where they need to make, in the way that they thought they might.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And, there's the I know what to do, I just don't do it thing. And I think it's, that's true to a degree, right? Like just being consistent is the first part of that. But everybody's different. Everybody's metabolism is different. Everybody's environment is different. Everybody's genetics are different. So what it takes for one person to get stronger or lose weight or be really efficient and run sub hour and a half marathons is going to be different for different people. So I think the first step really is just being consistent. And I think yes, I mean, I think we're getting into the weeds. Yes, I think people don't have enough knowledge to get there. But if you can get consistent, like that's the first step, right? And a lot of times, I was just thinking this: it's not the knowing, it's the doing. Because you could get the information from AI, right? There's a lot of information from AI. Now, to get the right answers, you need to ask the right questions. So again, there is that thing of not knowing what you don't know. But I think, yeah, once you're consistent and you're really good with that, then it's like you really have to know what to be consistent with.
Now, one thing you mentioning consistency, somebody, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but one of the adages that I've heard is, you can't outrun a bad diet. So, how important is consistency, not only with, with exercise, let's say, whether it's weight loss or general fitness or whatever, how important is consistency with that other piece, the nutrition piece?
Yeah. So I want to even get a little bit deeper into the onion. Let's peel back another layer.
Okay.
So yes, it's important to be consistent with the exercise. Yes, it's important to be consistent with the nutrition, right? Whether it's weight loss or getting stronger or whatever your fitness goal is, your nutrition is going to support that, right? But I think the big rocks that people are missing are like sleep and getting enough water and getting enough protein. Like even if some people's goals are to gain weight, right? Some people want to gain weight, and that's part of their fitness goals, right? So enough protein. you know, staying connected with other people is really important for our mental health, which is important for our physical health. So, being part of a community. And I think these are things that we overlook that are a big part of our health, our fitness, and just things that are just so easy to nail. Yes, and I mean getting a little bit more into the diet, but you know, vegetables and fruits, like it's there are just ways to be a little bit more consistent, like a banana, right? Like maybe you don't want to have banana every day. You should probably have the gamut of fruit, but just like a few things to be a little bit more consistent with the nutrition, right? Like frozen foods, flash frozen foods are going to have just as much nutrition, sometimes more than what you might find in the produce section. So having the frozen berries makes it easier. Put them in a container, bring them to work, right? Having a banana, having an orange, right? Apple, these there are things that make it much easier that you don't really need to put together. And if we're getting into a really specific example, throw the frozen berries in container, bring some yogurt, and as part of your lunch or snack or whatever, just throw them in, right? Because they'll be thawed. Some nuts. It's just like my favorite snack: yogurt, frozen berries, nuts, a little bit of banana, a little bit of an apple, and maybe that's going a little bit too deep for what you're bringing to work, but that is my favorite. But I think there's some, yeah, I think the movement, nutrition, sleep hygiene, stress management, I think is a big one that people miss. It's going to be a big part of your fitness journey, kind of winding down, and letting your nervous system relax. Like your daughter's in bed right now, letting her nervous system relax. So, but yeah, there's just to kind of get a layer deeper than just nutrition. A lot of other things that we can do to get healthier and support whatever goals there are.
So I heard on the radio the other day, it may have been a day or two ago, that it was like the unofficial break your resolution day, because typically we've reached the point where people have set their resolution, they went on with it for a week, and either something in their motivation changes, they hit a lull in their energy level, something comes up and they don't have the time that they originally had or they thought they were going to have. So instead of giving up at those points, how should people be rethinking their goals? When they hit those kinds of circumstances, whether it's the motivation and struggling with that, or you're just finding that you don't have the energy, or something shifts and you don't have the time that you thought you might have.
Yeah. So just to hit on it was someone told me this. It was Quitters Friday. I'm in a business networking group, and said something. It was Quitters Friday. I was like, I think that's a poor outlook. I don't love that phrase. But it's true. By the end of January, I think 50%. By the end of March, it'll be 90% of people fall off fitness New Year's resolutions. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe it's that. But for the first part of that, the motivation, it's not always going to be there. I'm not always motivated to try. If I wasn't addicted to it, you would probably be. I don't always have the motivation to do it. And if we're just talking about that specifically, there has to be a shift. I think that's scary for people. There has to be a shift of identity. And you have to start making decisions from a place of you're there, like what would the person that you want to be doing, as opposed to the person that you are. Make decisions from a place of at, and not from a place of from. You know what I mean? So it really takes some identity shift to be consistent and have it be sustained. So I think on the motivation piece, I don't think it's motivation. I don't even think it's discipline. I think it's having a system, because days aren't going to be perfect. Uh, you know, last week I had to bring my son um, to a doctor's appointment. He ended up having an ear infection. Um, I didn't know I was going to have to do that. Uh, but I had a system of where I was supposed to work out that day. I really had to take care of him. And I have a workout schedule that I can move around. And I know for my specific goals, there's a certain amount of work that I need to do. Right. And I didn't quite get all that work in, but I got enough in to know that I'm continuing to progress or at least maintain. Right. So I took two of the workout days and I combined them to make sure that, I'm still in a good place and I'm not, backpedaling. So I think more than motivations, more than discipline, it's having systems in place. It's having systems in place. Circumstances will change, right? It's inevitable. Change is inevitable. Um, whether it's less time and I don't remember what the other thing that you said is, but there's always a way to get it in. It doesn't have to be an hour and a half at the gym, right? That's not always it. That's not realistic for most people who are starting off with these New Year's resolutions. I actually think that's a big mistake. It might just be, I'm going to do a set of 10 squats at my desk 5 times today, right? And you put a timer on, right? And maybe that's just the start of it. But you can actually get a lot done in 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and see a lot of progress with a 20-minute workout, especially if you're just starting off. So, rethinking their goals. I don't think it's a rethinking goals. I think it's just rethinking the approach.
Now, you just mentioned, that you can be effective with, 20, 30 minutes. For people who have that limited time, how do you balance making sure that you're getting in an efficient, worthwhile workout with, staying healthy and making sure that you don't end up injuring yourself, especially early on, and then really derailing yourself for a while. I, for one, and this was a while back, this was actually last year before New Year's resolutions or anything, but I had a back injury that I ended up having to do physical therapy for, that really set me back. And it happened partially doing what I thought was seemingly nothing. I was on the treadmill warming down after an exercise session, and really it derailed a lot of my progress, because I could not really do much of anything with my back in the condition that it was. It was a while before I could even get to walking distances, So how can we prevent and make sure that we are being safe and healthy as we're approaching, especially if it's a new regimen or a new approach to achieving your goals?
Yeah, it's using this concept of graded exposure, right? And it's like anything, any injury, it's too much too soon. And it's not like too much too soon acutely, like immediately too much too soon, but it's kind of the lack of recovery over time, and maybe a lack of sleep, and maybe increased stress at home, at work, and all these things that we don't think to regulate. That something like what you're talking about. I have no clue what was going on. I don't know what the workout was or any of the other circumstances, but if that happened on the treadmill, it was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, right? And it probably at any other time was nothing. It was probably not much, but it was probably the straw that broke the camel's back. And people think, you need a lot of time to warm up. The warm up can be part of the workout. It can be part of your workout volume, right? I think there's so specific things that people think that they absolutely need, like static stretching where you're holding the stretch. That's not always the best thing. It may increase injury risk and definitely decreases performance. So that's not something that you would do before a workout. Um, how do we stay safe? I think if we're going back was the question when we have this limited time. I think, just being really sure of the movements that you're doing. Again, it's that graded exposure, right? Like you might be strong enough to squat 100 pounds. This is a totally, this number is arbitrary. It's not usually, it's not even like a number that people squat. Maybe it is if you want a body weight squat, but we'll just say squatting 100 pounds. You might actually be strong enough to do that. And it might feel like nothing to you, but if you've never squatted before, you don't have that movement pattern down. And so if you've got a barbell on your back, of course, this is not what happened to you, but I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people. You got a barbell on your back, and it's not something that you've done before. 100 pounds probably isn't the place to start, or 200 pounds or whatever the number is. And I have seen that a lot. People will be like, oh, well, I'm going to do this exercise today. And they do the exercise and you see them. And as someone who's very familiar with technique, exercise technique, you can see that, their form was not very good. And I mean, you don't go up to them and be like, hey, this is terrible, but you're thinking, I hope they don't get hurt. I hope they don't get hurt here. So, people think that you need like a lot of different exercises. And I think just coming off that, people think you need a lot of different exercises. It's important to do the same exercises, get used to the movement. That's one thing that's really going to help you, that's one thing that's going to help you stay safe. And one thing that's going to help your progress because your body's going to adapt to it. That's where the progress comes in. So, those are some things that can help you stay safe. When we have that limited time, I mean, don't rush, but it's the graded exposure to the specific movements, I would say, if I had to put it in a nutshell.
Sure. Now, one thing, just circling back, we're, talking about, adjusting, rethinking goals or, and really it's not so much rethinking goals, as it is, systems. How important do you think it is? And this is something that just popped into my head. How important is it to find things that you really enjoy doing? Like if you are someone who just really just can't get into lifting weights, but there's something else that you really enjoy to do. Is it really going to be beneficial to you to keep banging your head against the wall and to say, "Oh, I've got to lift these weights," or are there ways to approach things where you can make it so it's a more enjoyable experience while still getting where you need to go? Yeah, obviously there are certain exercises that only do certain things, that are beneficial in certain ways, but is there a way that you can tailor things, depending on, if someone is just like, man, I just really, I've done it before. I haven't found a way that I can keep myself motivated to do this because I just really don't like it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. If you find something else that you like to do and it's movement, I highly encourage that. It may not get you to the goal that you want to get to, but I think some movement is better than no movement, right? I mean, if someone's like, either I'm going to do this activity that I really love or I'm just not going to do it, I 100% encourage them to do whatever that is. And I could talk about a lot of different things that are a lot less beneficial. And, it's not that for me, lifting weights, it's like I'm addicted to that, right? Like, and making sure cardiovascularly, I'm all set, whatever it is. And that's a lot of different things. Like, I'm not a huge runner. I don't like running. I wouldn't, you know. Um, for me, it's going to be a circuit with weights, or it's going to be elliptical. Boring for a lot of people. Boring for me, but it's something that I can stomach. It's going to be bike. I like cycling outside. Um, but for some people, it's running. I have a right now. I'm working with a 65-year-old woman, and there's this Abbott series of marathons. And she's done the Berlin, she's done the UK, she's done like 4 of them. And she wants to run a sub-4. She's working towards the Boston right now. She wants to run a sub-4. She's 65. She's done some of it. And she's had some knee pain. And so we're working with her to run that sub-4 in the Boston. Doesn't love lifting weights. But we set it up in a way that she's like, all right, I can handle this, because it's not like I'm lifting a set and I'm waiting 10 minutes to do my next set, which is a grinder, right? It's built in the circuit that she loves. It's pretty quick. Her knees are feeling better. It's supporting her bones, right? Because running's highly impactful. And it's going to be pretty easy to have a stress fracture, especially if you're running more than your bones are ready for. So it's doing that. It's getting her knees lubed, so to speak, making them feel better. It's letting her muscles grow in a way that they need to grow to be able to sustain running, right? Like at certain points. So it's a different way of lifting than just kind of what you would perceive as lifting weights.
Sure.
But I think just if it's movement, I'm a movement optimist, and I think if it's movement and you love it, you should do it. But that's dancing, dance, because you can get into great shape doing a lot of different things. And I want to say that great shape is different for everybody. Maybe that doesn't, I mean, there are healthcare standards, and trying to reduce the risk of health disease and chronic disease. But I think a big thing is, I don't want to get too scientific, but movement is really important for a lot of different reasons. And so if there's something you love to do and it's movement, you should do it, if it's going to keep you going, especially.
Now, we mentioned earlier about those smaller milestones and making sure that you celebrate those. How do you encourage, especially like your clients, to measure progress in different ways? I think that it's really easy to kind of focus on, the scale, or, some of these, I want to run this far by this time, or, whatever. What are some different ways that people can measure progress without necessarily a specific number attached to it, as an example?
Yeah, no, I think you kind of got into I loved the goal because I think it was specific and time based, but if it like SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time based. Of course, if it's your goal and you want to do it, it's relevant. But if you set those, you're working towards something, right? So even if you don't hit it, you've got some data, and you're like, hey, I did pretty good. You compare it to last time, and it's going to be better than last time if you've been working at it, or if you're working with me, you're going to be better at it. But having those, setting those goals is a good way to measure it. The scale, like even if it's weight loss, like the scale, if you start exercising, you're going to be gaining muscle. And if you rely on the scale to give you the information about progress, it's not going to be super. I'll give you an example. I was working with a client who wanted a 6-pack, and a vanity goal, and that's okay, right? That's okay, right? So he wanted a 6-pack, but I think it was like 6 months, and his weight didn't change, and he was pretty disappointed after like 3 months when his weight didn't change. And you can't always see in progress. Like I can see in progress pictures because there are a lot of people that I work with that is their goal, right? A lot of people that I work with, that's not their goal. But if you don't see it a lot, you probably won't notice it on yourself. But I think he lost like 2 pounds after 6 months. He did have a six pack. So the scale is not really a great it's not really great at giving you changes on body composition because weight and body composition are two different things. But so I mean, progress pictures is a way to measure it. How your clothes fit, how your energy is, how your confidence, how confident you feel. Right? It's if you're going to the gym, working out, whatever it is, right? Working towards your fitness goal all the time, you're going to feel pretty confident and like accomplished, right? So that's another way. It's subjective, but I think it's, a really important thing to consider. Are you stronger? You can measure that, right? Like even if like say weight loss is a goal, like are you stronger at the things that you're doing? Because if you're getting stronger, you're building muscle. If you're building muscle, you're increasing your your metabolism is just faster. Um, so that's a really good one. Are you less sore? Do you have there's maybe two different kinds of soreness, and I mean like maybe you have some shoulder pain and you've gone about it really carefully. Your shoulder feels better, or maybe you just have these aches right from sitting at a desk all day, and all of a sudden, like, hey, you know what? I'm not having those anymore. Because almost everybody that I work with works at a desk, and I think a lot of us do now. But there's a lot of different ways to measure it, and I think the scale is not the best way to measure progress. I think when it does make sense is when you have a weight loss goal and you've been lifting weights for a long time. Because once you've been lifting weights for a long time, it's going to be pretty difficult. Like muscle gain is going to be fairly slow. So you can be pretty confident that you're losing fat mass if the scale is going down. So I think that's one time where it does make sense to use the scale.
So basically with anything, something like the scale is a tool, but just like with anything else, you've got to be using the right tool for what the job is. And if the job is measuring things a certain way, the scale may not be the optimal measurement tool for that.
Correct. Yeah. I love that. It's a tool. Yeah, you're not going to use a weed whacker to cut down a tree. It's a specific tool that does a specific thing. I love that analogy. You're absolutely right. Yep.
So we're approaching the end of the month, and we've talked about there's the trends very much veer off into the negative and people falling off their resolutions as we get into February and much more into March. If somebody comes to you and they're somebody who's already fallen off of a resolution by February, what's your advice to them about resetting, recalibrating everything, refocusing without feeling like without them feeling like they've failed, And I guess there's a certain aspect of this too where it's kind of examining, okay, are there excuses as to excuses versus reasons, because and balancing those two things.
Excuses versus reasons. I love that because there are excuses and then there are reasons. But I don't. If someone is coming to me and asking me that, they haven't failed yet, right? They've failed when they've decided they failed. They're not going to do the thing anymore, right? Like they're still working towards it because they came to me and asked me the question, or they went to somebody else and asked them the question. They haven't failed yet, right? Like they're still trying to do the thing. And I think you use your so far unsuccess so far, like you use that as data and learning. And okay, what am I going to change? you zoom out, take a 30,000 foot view, and look at all the things that are going on, the things that could affect it, and say, all right, I'm going to change just one variable and see if it makes a difference, right? But I think the first piece of advice that I would give them is that, hey, you have not failed, right? You are in the process, and you asking the question already lets me know that you haven't failed. Um, so I think that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give. I'd have a lot more questions than things to say, right? Because there's probably a lot of things that I could say, hey, do this, this, and this. And you'll probably see some changes. But so I'd probably have a lot more questions, but I wouldn't say that person failed if they're asking me.
All right. Well, Mike, I want to thank you very much for the time. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on, you'd like to add that I didn't think to ask about? Because you've got, you've forgotten more about this than I possibly could ever know. So if there's anything that you mentioned before, knowing the right questions to ask, I may not know all the right questions. So if there's anything that I've neglected to touch on that you feel is important to mention, I'd welcome that at this point.
Yeah. I think you hit on a lot of good stuff. I think the biggest thing here is if you have goals and you're not close to them, and it's something that you've tried before, there probably needs to be a mindset or identity shift. And it's probably more about that than any of the other things. Like, if there are circumstances, we can always work around those. Like if someone has time circumstances or work circumstances or the kids, those can be worked around. There's a lot of different strategies to work around them, but really there has to be an identity shift. You have to be making decisions as the person that you want to be. And I think that's the biggest thing. Not to sound woo, but and I could get into much more of the objective things, but there needs to be a shift of identity. I think that's one thing that maybe I touched on a little bit. I think that's important to know and to do if you're going to be if you want to hit that goal.
All right. Well, I always like to give people the opportunity to let people know how they can find you if they're looking to, use your services or get more information about you. Where can they find you, contact you, and learn more?
You can find me on Facebook, Michael Lavoilette. You can find me on Instagram at Mike_Evolve Health PT. You can email me, Mike@evolvehealthpt.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Not on there too much, but I do have an account. Or you can go to my website, evolvehealthpt.org.
All right. I'll also put some of those links to those in the show notes too. So if anybody's listening and didn't have time to write that down, you can just go in and click on the links in the show notes and they'll be there for you. All right. Well, Mike, I really appreciate the time. I think that this was, it's a great conversation to have this time of year. Obviously, you have a wealth of information and we touched on just a very little bit of it. But I appreciate you taking the time and really, giving me and giving a lot of people something to think about as we continue in our own personal journeys.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Chris.
All right. Well, thank you very much for listening. And thank you, Mike, for joining us. I mean, I'm just like everybody else. I've struggled with this kind of stuff for a long time too, setting goals, not knowing exactly how to achieve them, feeling like I'm letting myself down when I don't achieve them, and everything in between. And really, Mike helped put a lot of that into appropriate context and kind of helped guide us a little bit in how we can look at these things just a little bit differently and maybe be a little bit more successful the next time. If you want to know more about Mike and his work, I put that information in the show notes, so you can go and click on any of those and find Mike, and he'll be able to help you out. Speaking of helping out, if you'd like to help out the Maza's Musings podcast, you can do that by telling your friends. Friends, family, whatever. Word of mouth is the best way to let people know and help this podcast grow. Now, you can also go to your favorite podcatcher and leave us a rating and review. And those 5 stars or thumbs up or whatever that program uses, that all bumps us up in those algorithms that make us more visible to more people. And the more people that we are reaching, the bigger we can grow this community. And that's really the goal here, is to connect people together and create more of a community. And while we're on the topic of community, join our Facebook community, the Musing Place. And you can find it by going to Facebook and finding Maza's Musings, the Maza's Musings podcast on Facebook. You can also, if you're not into Facebook, you can connect with us on Twitter, on Instagram, and Threads at Maza's Musings Pod. You can also find us on TikTok at Maza's Musings Podcast. We also have a Blue Sky, and I mentioned earlier that YouTube channel, so go ahead and subscribe to that as well. You can find all this information and more on our website, mazasmusings.wordpress.com. And while you're there, you can also find past episodes, which have been recently moved around a little bit and reorganized. You can find out more about me and this podcast, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. And the newsletter comes in your inbox once a week and just kind of lets you know about all of the things that are going on with me in this podcast. You'll find out about things that are coming up, things you might have missed. We also have news and insight on other things that are going on. We shout out other podcasts. And even if there are contests or sweepstakes that are out there that we come across, we let you know about those as well. And while you're on the website, after you have signed up for the newsletter, you can also support us just a little bit more by buying us a blue milk. Now, buying us a blue milk is just a small, obligation-free way to help us with some of the small costs that go into putting this podcast together. This is a hobby, everybody. This is not something that I'm looking to make any money off of. So any help is much appreciated. And of course, whether you are listening for the first time or buying us blue milk or anything in between, you are very much appreciated. And I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. Podcast is brought to you by Hi Dad Soup. Check them out at Mickey and Minutes on Instagram.